are the heroes of our society, who have achieved everything what an ordinary human being aspires to achieve today, truly happy. I've often watched interviews with celebrities. I'm currently recalling a particularly striking one with the pop icon Madonna, who has truly achieved everything imaginable in her external life. Now at an age where you can essentially sit back and enjoy your accumulated wealth and achievements, Madonna, are you satisfied? And Madonna answered quite clearly and confidently, "No, I'm not, and don't you dare to think I'm trying to pull your leg." This reaction is truly bizarre, or rather quite telling. Here's a woman who has achieved everything: fame, money, younger sexual partners, travel, recognition, mansions. Simply everything, and she's still not satisfied. And my point is, Madonna isn't an isolated case. She's merely one of millions of other examples. In light of this truth, it wouldn't actually be so far-fetched to give some thought to what would truly make us happy. Shouldn't everyone have figured this out for themselves at least once in a lifetime? What is the measure of a worthwhile life? And one of the biggest myths and misconceptions in this world is that promiscuous sexuality guarantees true joy. That doesn't immediately make sense to everyone, does it? It's generally taught that sexuality is the piquant, mysterious reward for all the efforts and achievements of a fulfilled life, the sweet grape at the pinnacle of our existence in the material world. All prominent media outlets bombard us with images on net, TV, or in newspapers, and 95% of the world population validate themselves nowadays on social networks to get a bit of the subtle sexuality, which means attention and a good name in society, friendship and love. All of this proclaims and reinforces this belief. I've now achieved this or that in order to attract an attractive partner into my life, or, as I said, the media puts supposedly beautiful, successful couples on the front pages and main programs of our screens. Studies by experts rub it in our faces that there's nothing to shake about this myth. Once you keep your body fit and enjoy enough sex, you will be happy and healthy. This or that celebrity has sex 20 times a week and lives in this dream villa with 24 bedrooms, and so on and so forth. But if we take a closer look at all this, or watch it all from a certain distance, then we have to get honest and admit that this desire and hunger for constant, subtle, and gross sexuality is often the cause of a lot of small and bigger problems we have in our life. Let's say you have attained and enjoyed your dream partner, and even maybe have married her or him, and now you summarize all that peak points of your dream affair and can say, oh yes, in 4 years of our being together in a relationship, I had about 10 hours of the ultimate romance moments and the ultimate enjoyment material experience has to offer. Then there are still all the many days, weeks, months, in short, the rest of these years of effort you had to put in, working, struggling, and fighting like an idiot to make this mess finally work out and happen. If we look at it closer, we have to calculate in all these messy situations of failure, when you've succeeded and reached the long-awaited goal of your desires. You sit before your dream partner. You are standing on the stage before all the people you ever wanted to impress and get their applause, but you not feeling well in that moment. Do you get me? Who can guarantee that you'll truly enjoy your well-deserved result? Often, our happiness depends on our mental state. We might be too tired, stressed out, feeling unbalanced, moody, or otherwise upset. If we calculate things in this way, we ultimately suffer far too much for a tiny, limited, and not particularly significant pleasure. To sum it up, lust binds you to a very common material quality of life. Whenever the goal is reached, there is at least a 50% chance that we must realize it's not nearly as great and wonderful as I had thought. No, the spirit protests. You're seeing it wrong. It's actually absolutely fantastic. You're just not looking closely enough. The whole world, society, your friends, your relatives and acquaintances all thought it was good. So you should be convinced that it is indeed also good for yourself. This is how we end up convincing ourselves, mentally hypnotizing ourselves, that we were right to follow the promises of the media and the behavior of the masses. And if something has any flaws and black spots, we gladly paint it purple and pink, spending many days and years of our lives in the soap bubble of a fatal illusion called material life. Spiritual reality and fact, however, is our soul is gradually gagged more and more by our desires, and our true personality is lost. Our true personality remains in a kind of aggregation state. If the awakening of our spiritual personality is continually postponed in this way, one imperceptibly sinks into the maelstrom of material energy. It is like a subtle mutilation, a kind of psychological butchery. Although everyone would like to be free and act in the name of love, although someone strives in their heart for a completely different realization and a completely different experience, they must, battered by their specific conditions and drives, repeatedly fail, remain enslaved and live, if at all, only for a few seconds in the realm of love. The rest of the remaining time, we stumble in the valley of an awe-inspiring failure. At the height of being influenced by lust, one will no longer be able to truly listen to the other person. Means you are not anymore able to deeply dive in or engage with your counterpart's thoughts and feelings. The problem lies in the fatal fact of self-conditioned motivation. One simply wants something from the other. This is precisely why someone whose life is too focused on their own desires, under the spell of selection, will always only perceive themselves and never be able to truly connect with others. Their own desire or interest just hasn't been satisfied yet. Such a person finds, of course, rarely any silence within themselves, and therefore is incapable of perceiving the personality of the other person. Thus, one remains in a state of absolute non-love. I absolutely do not want to leave my potentially disastrous statements unchallenged at this point, but rather present evidence. As I have already mentioned, lust manifests itself both physically and subtly. It is perfectly acceptable to transform lust into love within a suitable, meaningful relationship, for example, in a non-profit organization or selfless mission of any sort, or in the case where two souls enter into commitment for inner purification. Means man and woman support each other in good times and bad, both physically and transcendentally. However, the subtle manifestation of lust is often much more unprotected, opaque, and often runs rampant, especially once victims and theatrical doers have found themselves. Since the original birth of lust is rooted in our desire to imitate God, the subtle lust fire manifests itself in the desire for followers, honor, power, and the greed to have a name in society and to leave a lasting legacy. The Sanskrit term for this is pratishta. And actually, with basic spiritual knowledge, it would be incredibly easy to uncover these traces of subtle desire. However, most of us are too blinded by the baser manifestations of nature, specifically passion and ignorance. Be wary when those in power present themselves as God's instrument.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
Be wary when people of all kinds and professions aggressively promote themselves and permanently validate themselves before others and the world, strategically pushing on their way into the public eye, even elbowing their path towards the top. The subtle fire of lust, not the fire of selfless love, burns within them. Of course, this material world is the perfect and even intended place to imitate God. And we will hear more about this in upcoming videos. Someone who burns within the transcendental cooling fire of true love will never ever glorify themselves, but will simply and silently perform their given service and duty. Only the spiritually awakened recognize these rare souls and genuine lovers. All others are blinded by the glamour of dubious heroes, stars, leaders, and idols. Meanwhile, misguided poets affirm that the greedy lament of unfulfilled longing is part of the human life goal, to stand in the limelight at least once, Sadly, they fail to recognize that the root of all wars and conflicts in this world lies in the lack of a wiser direction and selfless motivation in relationships, be it an individual relationship with any public or the intimacy of a loved one. In the videos that follow this one, I will continue to write about the more authentic soul's urge to love God. And when I use the term God here, I don't mean some vague personality, some indeterminate light in the universe, or anything undefined, formless, never personally encountered. No, the author himself has met God himself due to having met enlightened ones who presented God to him with his personality. The urge to love God is the deepest and most primal desire and need of the soul. Indeed, we may examine ourselves. We may sense how powerful this desire is, and how deep this genuine love sleeps within us. It is the origin of our imprisoning love, with which we mutually hold each other captive. Its realm is the subtle and coarse material sexuality, which we unfortunately still mostly carefully separate from our deeper self-interest of a more loving, sacred connection. If I assert that the power of genius love is based on the same power with which we have been pursuing our own interests for eons, all spiritually and logically minded contemporaries will, of course, immediately agree with me. Both the love for God and the attraction to material energy have the same origin, namely the divine nature we all are coming from originally. Let's assume for a moment that sunlight is identical with our original power of love and devotion, our Bhakti. If this need to surrender to God or to the divine, which is like sunshine, is then supposed to fit into a small room, the sunlight is obviously greatly weakened. Everyone has surely admired the colorful glass mosaics in the large windows of a church and observed how the sunlight breaks through them. The sunlight, originally shining brightly, is not only greatly weakened by the window, but also distorted. Essentially, we set out to fulfill a spiritual urge, but end up miserably in our material consciousness. In the dead ends and shopping districts of this world, we then follow these distorted, much smaller, colorful lights. These lights twinkle towards me and you, and because we want to fool each other, we agree that they have value. In a material consciousness, you are completely convinced, I can only satisfy this urge if I give in to my desire. This extreme conviction and attachment may give a tiny hint of how absorbed a genuine lover might be, because the same longing directed towards God or toward a striving for the divine can transform it into true love. The Vedas proclaim that the soul is Ananda Bhashyat, that is, ever striving for bliss. However, if we don't direct it straight toward eternity or the eternal, we filter this immense power of the soul through the thick lump of our false ego, and will become one of the sad heroes earlier mentioned. Therefore, I now want to raise the question, how can we live our originally spiritual ego completely unfiltered and free? If everyone is so bound to this world, what chance do we even have? We've already touched on the real key. The door doesn't open outwards, but from inwards. The key lies in your Atman, in your innermost self. If we try to deny this desire, this urge, we will inevitably have to capitulate. It simply can't be done. It can neither be stopped nor suppressed for a long time. This force is just too strong. After all, everything we see around us is based on it, is built upon it. This power is as immediate and spontaneous as a child. If a child wants to say something and you cover its mouth, it will soon begin to scream. Likewise, one will not become free of desire by attempting to kill it or wage war against it. As already mentioned, we simply have to use this power differently, or rather transform it. Attention! This thesis will certainly sound familiar to some Western followers of the sexual liberation movement. However, as already announced in the foreword, the genuine lover is neither a treatise that irresponsibly kicks the doors towards an animal consciousness wide open, nor does it advocate a questionable and complicated form of oppression. Here is to be added, also my dear armchair philosopher and theorist, it will be difficult for you to follow me. as this path of transformation requires a great deal of openness and a willingness to experiment, and indeed it needs a bolstered dose of courage and idealism, and ultimately your watcher's entire life. The spiritual eros is a kind of spiritual nuclear power, or even a special sort of spiritual dynamite. And if someone dares to translate the ideas of this video series into their life and perhaps even apply them, this would definitely mean a reorganization, or rather a discovery of their entire deep inheriting personality structure, as well as an awakening and utilization of their full potential, and a stepping into the storehouse of divine love. This reading might be the beginning or the middle of this transformation, but this much is clear: thousands of threads will be pulled so that our minds trapped in repetitive mechanisms are completely reversed, because the key lies in serving our desire at its source, instead of allowing ourselves to be too tightly bound to the material body. We must summon a certain amount of determination and cultivate that transcendental desire of which several living and departed saints have already spoken. But respected listeners, well then, let's have this courage, because this is a wonderful, almost mysteriously effective way to come out here. And again, thousands have walked this path before us, and thousands will walk it after us. Yes, billions and billions and billions have treaded it over the millennia. This path has been passed down through a timeless tradition for eons, and it is entirely up to us whether we allow ourselves to take up this path here and now, or not. Yes, it is solely our own decision, and it works either way. So what is holding us back? What stands in our way? Here is my answer: it's pride, prejudice, arrogance, pomposity, false ego, our presumption, our subjective view of placing itself above millennia-old traditions, and thinking as we, a small, insignificant macrocosm, see and classify the matter, the issue, that is the be-all and end-all, the ultimately acceptable judgment, the last possible, ultimate opinion, and the absolute last word, and this in every respect. And the second presumption follows immediately. People, or you yourself, convince your mind that we have already reached the pinnacle of human development and potential within our fool's paradise. Never ever have we been more progressive, enlightened, and better off than today. Ha ha ha. If I think, I won't let anyone tell me what to do, especially not in spiritual matters, because I already know everything. I've long since arrived. I've put that behind me. Or everyone has to experience spirituality for themselves. No one needs to teach them about it. Or we are all on the same level. We are all one, and even 5,000 years ago there was no one who knew things better than I do today, and in the next 5,000 years there probably won't be also anyone else who knows and does things better than me. Then we won't get anywhere. And we will go round after round in the samsara, the cycle of repeated birth and deaths, to consume our own vomit in ever new packaging, believing, of course, that it is the purest nectar. Nevertheless, incredibly but true, the truly loving, transcendental, genuine lovers have always been in the majority, today and always. Because the majority arrived already in the kingdom of God, while we are here on our stupid, mindless, static ego trip, unfortunately.